When someone gets defensive, do you start over-explaining? Longer text, more detail, trying to make it lay in perfectly? That's not clarity, that's activation. And here's the worst part. Afterwards, you don't even like who you were in that conversation. You went in calm, but you left reactive. I used to do this constantly with my ex-husband when we were talking about something involving our daughter. I would send what I thought was a reasonable message. He would then respond defensively with pushback or subtle blame. At that moment, I could feel myself change. Suddenly, my texts were twice as long. I wasn't trying to connect anymore. I was trying to make sure that I was being heard and not being misunderstood. And that shift matters. Because over-explaining feels responsible, but it's actually fear. If we haven't met yet, I'm Ruth Abraham, an accredited certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. I help people communicate and stay steady in conversations that used to activate them. So in this video, I want to show you what's actually happening in your nervous system when defensiveness changes you and how you stay yourself without escalating the conversation. Because you shouldn't have to lose yourself just to communicate clearly. Let's break this down. When someone gets defensive, your nervous system doesn't think, oh great, an opportunity for dialogue. It thinks threat. Not physical threat, but rational threat. Threat to your credibility, your integrity, your role as a parent, your intentions, especially when it involves your child. And when your nervous system feels threatened, it reaches for control. For some people, that looks like getting louder, but for some other people, it's over-explaining. I want to say something that might feel a little uncomfortable. Over-explaining is not always about clarity. Sometimes it's about fear of being dismissed. When I was sending those long texts to my ex-husband, I told myself that I was being thorough, but underneath that, I didn't want my concerns minimized. I didn't want to be misunderstood, and I didn't want to feel powerless. So I added more words, more detail, more explanation. But here's the irony. The more I explained, the less grounded I felt. Have you ever noticed that the longer your message gets, the less steady you feel? That's not communication skill breaking down, that's regulation breaking down. And here's why that matters. Because when you shift into proving, you stop leading the tone of the conversation. You start chasing it. And chasing never feels powerful. And here's the shift that changed everything for me. I stopped asking myself, how do I get that person to understand? And I started asking, how do I stay steady? Because these are two different goals. And when your goal is understanding, you push. And when your goal is steadiness, you regulate. And this might surprise you. Sometimes the strongest communication move is fewer words. Not better words, but fewer. When I started sending shorter messages to my ex-husband, something interesting happened. I felt calmer, even if the response didn't change on his end, because my peace wasn't tied to how well I could explain myself. It was tied to whether I stayed aligned. Over-explaining tries to control outcome. Steadiness controls you, and you actually have power over one of those. Have you noticed that the more you try to land something perfectly, the more anxious you feel waiting for the response? That anxiety is your cue. It's telling you that you're trying to manage something that isn't yours. You're not responsible for someone else's defensiveness, but you are responsible for who you become in the response of it. If you find yourself over-explaining, proving, or shrinking when someone reacts defensively, it's not because you lack communication skills. It's because your nervous system feels threatened. And in my last video, I break down exactly why calm communication still triggers defensiveness in the first place. If you haven't watched that video yet, go check it out after the end of this video. It will make this one even make more sense. And if you notice that you continuously replay conversations after they happen, or do you judge yourself for how you handled it, download my free guide for releasing judgment. You don't have to carry yesterday's activation into tomorrow's conversation. I'm Ruth Abraham. I'll see you in my next video.